We're going to go through a really easy tutorial video now to be able to create something called a shotgun fruiting chamber. Now this is going to be able to help you regulate your humidity. When you're growing mushrooms in bags or buckets, humidity can be a big factor if you're going to get a great pin set on your mushrooms. And when you get the pins forming, you want to make sure you keep the humidity up to them. So what people do sometimes is create something like this. It's called a shotgun fruiting chamber. And what it is essentially just a plastic container where you've got perlite in the bottom. Okay, so what we've got here is some bags of perlite. Now we fill the bottom with perlite and we keep that moist. And what's going to happen is going to create a microclimate inside this chamber. Now, as we also know, one of the problems with growing mushrooms is being able to provide enough fresh air to the mushrooms. And this is why this container is dotted with holes. Okay, so it's a little bit of a balancing act between keeping the humidity and keeping the fresh air in. But what we've got here is a grid of holes. So this container is about 50 litres, and I've just measured out on here 5 centimetre increments and created a nice grid on every side. So every side here has holes on it, both the top and the bottom and all the sides. And these holes are about 8 mils. And what we've done is created the grid and then I've drilled the holes. Now, drilling into plastic can be a little bit frustrating sometimes if you don't have the correct drill bit, because when you're forcing a drill bit into plastic, it can cause it to crack. And this is why we are using a cone-shaped drill bit like this. So a cone-shaped drill bit will allow you to enter the plastic easily, and it will create a nice 8 mil hole size. So these holes are 8 mils. You don't want to create too many larger holes than that, because the more holes you create, you're sort of counteracting what you're trying to do, which is keep the humidity in. So you've got a nice grid across here, and you've got nice 8 mil holes. Now, actually on the bottom of this container, I've actually put 6 mil holes. Now, the only real reason I've done that is to stop the perlite from falling straight through, but it's not 100% necessary, but I thought it was just a little addition I made. So 6 mil holes on the bottom and 8 mil holes on the top and around the sides. So from this point on, it's actually quite simple. Once you've got your holes drilled inside the container, what you want to do is just give it a spray down with some isopropyl alcohol mixed with water. Just on the surface there. And also on your lid. And you can just let that evaporate straight off. And then you want to fill up the bottom of this container with perlite. So this is just perlite straight from the hardware store. And you want to fill up a couple of inches worth of perlite in the bottom of this. So just pour it straight in here. Now, depending on what size container you have, will depend on how much perlite you need. So that was about 10 litres of perlite. And you just want to flatten it out. So you can see there, that's a couple of inches of perlite. Now, so I would say about 10 litres for a 50 litre container is absolutely fine. So once you've got your perlite inside your container here, you want to hydrate it. So you can hydrate it before you place it in the container, but it's absolutely fine to just start wetting down your mix inside the container. So with a hose, you just want to wet that mix down. Now, as soon as some water starts coming out the bottom, you want to stop. You don't need it to be like pouring out the bottom of the holes. So you can see that this is getting nice and hydrated here. So this is acting to hold the humidity in the base of the container. And you just want to keep going until your container's got enough water inside. And you can see now that it's starting to pour out the bottom here. So that's when we have to stop. So once the excess water is drained off, you'll see you've just got a nice layer of perlite in here with the water in there. And it's as simple as just placing your mushroom kits inside. So you might have your mushroom grow mini farm, Or if you're doing stuff in bags here like this, you can place that straight in. And then what you want to do is just put the lid on like this. So this is a really great way in having to reduce down the spray time that you're putting around your mushrooms. So if you've got the mushrooms outside of a chamber like this, you'll know that you have to keep the humidity up to them, especially when it's really dry outside. So this container, the shotgun fruiting chamber, is fantastic to be able to regulate your humidity. So if you're not at home a lot or you're going away, you can use something like this and it will hold the humidity in there. And every now and again you can open it up and give it a bit of a spray, but really there's not much spraying that's necessarily required for something like this. You just want to gauge the mushrooms, have a look at the sides of the pin set, feel the perlite, is it moist, but there's no need to keep spraying the mushrooms a lot once it's inside a chamber just like this. Now, after a while, you might want to change out your perlite. You can clean your perlite with boiling water. You can take it out. If you find that it's growing a little bit of like trichoderma or something like this, you might want to use boiling water just to sanitize it a bit. But basically, a container like this can last many, many months, okay? So you just want to keep the perlite moist. And if you've got moist perlite in there, you're going to create a great humidity environment. The perlite doesn't really form much mold on it because it's such a sterile surface in the first place with no nutrients and it's just got water on there. It's fantastic for this method. So in choosing your perlite, you want to try and go for a coarser perlite simply because you just don't want it to fall out through the holes in the bottom. But with just a 50-litre container like this and a few inches of perlite, you can create a fantastic chamber. So this is one of the simplest ways to sort of increase your growing experience from just putting some containers on the table or in the kitchen to sort of making a dedicated mushroom room perfectly for the mushrooms to grow. You only want to keep in mind how big your mushrooms are. So if you've got a container like this and you want to put a couple of buckets in, you just got to be mindful in how big your mushroom's going to grow. So you could use a smaller shotgun fruiting chamber, but then of course your buckets would have to be quite small because you're going to have more mushrooms on the side, and mushrooms double in 24 hours. So as they grow, you want to make sure they don't hit into the sides of the shotgun fruiting chamber. So by having the holes on the bottom and the moist perlite, it's actually drawing fresh air up through into the chamber. So that's actually a really great way to be able to increase the air circulation by having the holes on the bottom. One of the biggest things about the shotgun fruiting chamber is just enough air circulation. You are going to experience maybe some stemming mushrooms where the mushrooms are creating long stems. So just keep an eye on it. If you're finding that is a problem, maybe you have to increase the amount of holes you've got. Maybe you have to open up your container a few times a day, waft in a bit of air. You just want to try and gauge the mushrooms. It's going to differ for all of you depending on how much humidity you have in the air currently. If it's really moist in the air over 80%, it's going to be relatively easy. But if you've got a really dry climate, it's going to be a bit more difficult. So you just want to gauge that, what's going on there. But the shotgun fruiting chamber is a fantastic way to go from just growing a few mushrooms on your bench to be able to create a bit more of a controlled environment to get really fantastic mushrooms. So really recommend that you guys give the shotgun fruiting chamber a go.